system button. Otherwise, in this area, you can just go to the context menu, click on this add system. So here it will ask you to provide the details. So specify those details: host name, instance number, whether it's a single container or multiple containers. If it's single container, select that radio button. So just give some description, whatever you want, and choose the language. And you already know that HANA is a Unicode database. So there are support for many languages. And then authentication, you specify the database user and password. See, first time when you log into the HANA database, it's obvious that you need to log in with that database user system, because that's the default user you're getting. So enter the password which you are given at the time of installation. Choosing that first option, authentication by current operating system user, you can do that once after configuring something like single sign-on, using the different options what SAP is giving. We'll come to that later on. Click on finish. In case if your database is up and running, means all the services are running of the database, you can see that your database is added here. And is also showing that green dot here, meaning of that is all services are started, your database is running. Just double click on this. We are in the administration console. So you'll get something called administration editor on the right hand side with all the details. You can see the version of this is 2.00 SPS00. So this is one database. And similarly now, if you want to connect to the multi-tenant database, the one which we installed on another host, same procedure, you can add one more. Instance number. And now we need to select the multiple containers. You know, multiple containers database or multi-tenancy databases are having SystemDB and Tenant database. If you're an administrator, compulsory you need to use SystemDB. So if that's the case, just select SystemDB. So SystemDB will have the user system, enter the password, finish. So it will show you that clearly this is SystemDB, system database. SystemDB is only a DBMS, management system. I'm not going to use SystemDB for a data mart scenario. I'm not going to use SystemDB for an application. Application you need to install on the tenant database. So if you want to connect to the tenant database, similar procedure. Instance number, multiple containers, choose the tenant database and specify the tenant database name. So in this case, as tenant database is created at the time of installation, your SystemDB and tenant database will have same SID. Like this. You can also rename it if you're getting confused with the SystemDB name and tenant database name having the same. You want to rename, you can rename. You can do it easily using a statement or using a cockpit. So give description. See, even tenant database also will have system user. Default user is system user. You can connect. So showing that DB1 at DB1, this is SystemDB. It's connected like this. So now once you connect to the database, you can start performing activities. Like if I'm an administrator, if I'm responsible for performing a backup of this, what I do here, I just right click on this. I'll go to backup and recovery, open this wizard, backup wizard, and perform the backups if I'm an authorized person, like that. Now if they want to perform a backup of this tenant database, so tenant database directly they cannot take the backup. See, if I go to this, there's no option. It should be done by using SystemDB. So they'll right click on the SystemDB, go to backup and recovery, backup tenant database. System database, tenant database, like that. Recovery is all that they can do. So once you add these system entries, there's no restriction. You can add multiple system entries here. Means you can connect to multiple databases. It's flexible. Now, if I close this, and launch this HANA Studio next time, you'll find all those system entries intact. The only thing is, as we did not save the password, there is an option for you. As we did not save the password for these users, so what you have to do is just right click here. There is an option log on, enter the password. Like that. Okay, so that's a procedure where you work with your HANA Studio. And these need to be installed in each and every workstation, and you have to add the systems and work with them. A very, very significant tool. And here itself, another thing you can observe is on the left-hand side, once you connect it to the database, usually depending on the privileges you have, depending on the privileges that user is having, different activities you'll be allowed to perform. Doesn't matter whatever the activity you want to perform, you must have the privileges, which anyhow we are going to discuss in detail by part of our security. But what you can see on the left side here is we have some folders once we connect to the database. The significance of these folders is like this. Backup, anyhow there, in that backup console only you'll do all the settings related to backup. And then you have catalog. This is important. Catalog is consisting of all the database objects, which are grouped in the form of schemas. You know that. So database objects means that includes tables, procedures, sequences, synonyms, indexes, triggers, functions, everything you have there under this catalog. So if you go to this catalog folder, you'll find schemas. Under the schemas, you'll find subfolders like tables, triggers, and all that. Like this. So that's catalog. And then we have provisioning. Under this, all those configurations and connections related to smart data access. In case if they want to use smart data access to connect to the remote sources, which we call them as NLS systems, nearline storage systems, those connections they can establish here. And then you have something called content. Content is the place where all these developments will be taking place. Like what are the modeling objects they need to develop, all that will be done under this content only. So they have grouping of those objects, they call it as package. Under the package, they create those objects like attribute views, analytic views, calculation views, even our privileges, analytic privileges also will be there, part of this. Procedures. That's all related to development. And I'll show you how they develop it, because that will be really needed for you, particularly when you're working with a specific type of privilege called analytic privileges and package privileges. We'll see that practically later on. And then you also have security folder under which you have users, roles. You can create the users here. We can grant the privileges. We can create the roles, grant the privileges, grant the roles to the users. All this can be done. Apart from security settings, like password policies, identity configurations you can do, encryptions you can perform. All those facilities also they give. So that's how this database structuring will be when you connect to any HANA database like that. And here When it comes to this multi-tenant database, there is one SystemDB, one tenant database as of now, default. Now, if the customer need one more tenant database, he can create it. He can do it by using HANA Cockpit more easily. Otherwise, if he can use SQL console, you can perform by using a simple SQL statement like this. So example, I'm just giving TV2. And they'll just execute that particular statement. It will create a tenant database for me. So that's actually being executed on the right bottom corner, extreme corner. You can see that the processing is going on. It doesn't take much time, hardly a minute it will take just to create the database and start the database. And after that, you can connect to the tenant database also. This they can do anytime, whenever they want. So it's executing that. Because now the statement is executed, you can see that it's successfully executed. It has taken just a little more than a minute. Now you can also add that one. Zero 03, multiple containers, another tenant database DB2. This tenant database will also have its own system user. Like this. This is DB2 at DB1. This is another tenant database like this. So this is HANA DB, HANA Studio, from where you can work with this HANA database. There's also a WebID tool provided. WebID tool is provided to the developers usually. That's IDE tool. So if you want to access that WebID tool, you should be using a URL. Like example, for this database AB1, I want to access that WebIDE. So you can use this URL. Like this. That's a URL. The standard port, HTTP port /SAP/HANA/IDE. But the user, whoever is logging in here, should have the required privileges. Even system user doesn't have the privileges to access this WebIDE. So that's why you see that forbidden message. Now, I'm granting those additional privileges required for the system user. There's a built-in role to access this WebIDE. Something like this, ID developer. If it's only security admin or editor developers, we can give.